Inside this school is where Principal Karen Hudson painstakingly decides whether a student should be placed on an individual program plan or IPP. IPPs are developed for students who are struggling with the curriculum, but they haven't always been used fairly, particularly for Black and Indigenous students. Hudson's personal mission is to change that.
I see the value of our children, and I don't want our children who have not seen themselves within curriculum and not seeing themselves as being successful and not having those opportunities and not believing that they have the potential. I want to make sure that they feel that they are supported and that they can do whatever they put their mind to with the right supports in place. That's the lens I come from.
IPPs are meant to be a last resort after all other support and adaptations have been exhausted. They are highly specific to the student. Someone can be placed on an IPP for one subject or all subjects. They involve planning meetings with a team of people, including school staff, families, and the student, who work together to create specific academic outcomes for that student. Examples could be receiving math or reading material of a lower grade level, and sometimes being provided a secluded place away to complete that work. But a 2016 review found that Black students are 1.5 times more likely to be on an IPP than non-Black students. Indigenous students were 1.4 times more likely to be on an IPP. But what was perhaps even more alarming was that for about a third of Black students on an IPP, it was not found to be the most appropriate programming for that student. Enter the government's equity assessment on IPPs. The province promised in June 2021 to identify and remove systemic barriers in education, and originally said that report would be complete by winter 2021-2022. But it's still not here. A briefing note from early last year to the Education Minister said the longer timeline is the result of further analysis of the program, given the devastating consequences IPPs can have on Black and Indigenous youth. They can limit a student's ability to continue their education after high school. So where's the report? The Education Department says they now have it and are reviewing the findings, but there's no timeline for when it will be released publicly. In the meantime, they say the Halifax Regional Centre for Education has developed a collaborative process with families, schools, staff, and diversity teams to ensure the most appropriate programming is in place for students, and that recent data shows progress has been made to ensure other options are explored for Black and Indigenous students before moving to the development of an IPP. Hudson School is surely an example of that. Only 16 students were on IPPs at Auburn last school year as of April, one of the lowest numbers out of all the high schools in HRCE. In comparison, Sackville High, a school of similar size, had 47 students on IPPs. Hudson feels staff at Auburn have honed their ability to assess a student's strengths, weaknesses, and socioeconomic and cultural backgrounds before deciding if an IPP is appropriate.
Historically, students who could be of Black or African ancestry have been placed on IPPs, and we have not taken into consideration their lived experience, their culture background, and looking at the curriculum. So when you begin to dissect those aspects, you see that there are students who've been marginalized. And so when you saying that this child is less than, right, or this child cannot work to that level, that should not be the case because we have not done our part yet. But we have to acknowledge the inequality that exists and all these other culture and bridge those gaps between community and classroom instructions.
Hudson says the tides are changing, but it won't happen without administrators putting in the work to change their mindsets. Thomson, CBC News, Dartmouth.